Okay. Okay. So it is Thursday. It's 4 o'clock, and thank you for joining us once again for episode 6 of this MCC live stream series. We're back to drawing this week, and we're going to do an activity around a personal portrait. Introductions. With me, as always, is my good friend David Kirtland, Apple Professional Learning Specialist and a former teacher. Well, I suppose you're never a former teacher, are you, David? It's
We still do it. Still doing it every day.
and has been taking us through this journey over the last 6 weeks. So glad you can be with us again, because I wouldn't be very good at leading this session, I've got to say. And myself, Richard Child, I'm the Education Manager for MCC Digital. We are an Apple Authorized Education Specialist. And without any further ado, I'm going to say, let's have a quick look at what we're going to do. We are going to look at an activity. It is from the Everyone Can Create series from Apple, also an activity in the 30 Creative Activities for Kids, which Apple published a couple of months ago now. We will send links to these resources to you afterwards, and we'll show you a few QR codes as well, if you can't wait. So we're going to look at portrait drawing, and I have my pencil and my iPad ready. You can use your finger as well. So David, take it away, please.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Richard. So let's jump out to the slides there. So a couple of weeks ago, we spent some time looking at drawing, and we introduced the Sketches School app. We're going to dig into that in a bit more detail today and explore a topic which can be really quite scary for a lot of children, a lot of teachers as well, really, drawing portraits. And we're going to do 3 tasks today. So we've got a bit of progression so we can see how we can develop those skills. We'll start off doing an abstract style portrait, really, because that gives us flexibility to explore creativity, but it doesn't matter too much about making it look like a person or worrying about proportions. We're just having a go, really, to give the children a bit of confidence to attempt it. And so let's jump back into Sketches School, and I'm here looking at an empty portfolio. So I'm just going to go into the portfolio, and I've got a blank canvas there in front of me. So we'll jump in there, and we can see we've got all the tools down the side, and in the bottom corner, we can select our colors. I'm not going to go into the details of those. We did that a couple of weeks ago in the session on drawing there. So if you go back and have a look at the YouTube channel, you'll find all the details of the different tools there. So I'm going to select a pencil tool, and I'm just going to select a gray. And I'm going to use the ruler, and I'm just going to put some guidelines down. So just to start with, I'm going to do a simple cross so we know where things are in the middle of the page. So I'm just using the ruler to draw a straight line there. And while I'm here, I'm going to put a marker on either side, and that just lets me set it up so I am looking quite evenly on here, so I can see where I'm going from here. And I'm going to go to my fine liner. I'm going to go to a medium one there, and I'm going to change it to black. And the first thing I want to do is draw a U shape between these 2 markers to set up the main shape of the face. So there's my marker. And we're looking at something like that already. And it doesn't have to be perfect. The whole idea of it being an abstract portrait, we can get away with all sorts of things here. So from there, I'm going to draw in the kind of the main sections for the eye and the nose. So let's just put in a shape, something like that. That's a good starting point. And from there, we can draw a couple of eyes in. Put an eyelid in as well. And let's do another one on this side. And another eyelid there. So it's coming together. If we put a simple mouth in, we can see that this is starting to look a bit more like a face already. So we can flesh this out. We can put some almost kind of cartoon style nose elements on there. We can flesh out the mouth to make it look a bit more like a mouth. Let's join those up. We could put some ears on here. Maybe even put some earrings on. Draw a neck. Put a hairline over here. Draw some hair in. fill in the top of the head. There we go. And we can just we can divide this up. So when we do start colouring it, we've got lots of options for block colours. And just to divide up the picture, let's put some stripes down here. And we can kind of go crazy with this. A couple of weeks ago, we looked at patterns as well, and we can put some of those in here and we can play around with that. I might actually just divide the face in half, I think, as well. And then we can colour things separately. So that's starting to look a bit more like something that we could use. So let's colour it. I'm going to use my felt marker here, and I'm going to go for a large one just because we've not got a lot of time. I can fill in the areas quite quickly. You might want to be a bit more careful though and use a smaller marker, but I'm going to start with this one, and then I'm just going to colour it in. And the trick to this really is to try and do it all in one go, and then we get a nice solid colour. If I lift the pen up, you'll see that it colours it in layers. But I'm just drawing around that black line now, and I'm just being a little bit careful to get around there. A bit rough though, because like I said, I am doing this quickly, but let's colour this in. And if I'd used a finer one, I could fill some of those gaps a little bit more easily, but we're okay with that. So there we are, there's part of my face. I'm going to go for a blue, I think, for this side. Let's colour this in here. And it does take time to do this, but let's just do it quickly to give us an idea of what we're looking like. So there's a nice little bit for the face there, and that will do. Let's go for, I think we'll go for a green for the nose part. And don't forget, you've always got the eraser tool, and you've always got that undo button up in the top corner, just to help tidy things up if we are going a bit over the lines. And it's also quite good just to get the children focusing, and that concentration and the fine motor control involved in this is quite good. And all these skills, of course, are adaptable to paper, but this just gives us a nice space to keep exploring and doing different things. And we've got some colours. I think I'm going to go for a nice yellow for this block of the hair here. And we won't do all of this today because we haven't got a lot of time, but let's just do a bit more before we move on to the next task. There we go, and I think we'll have an orange on the side. We'll just do a few more. Let's have a red, I think. And there are some nice colours. Of course, we can double tap and get into the full spectrum of colours. So I've got the palette here, but I can expand it and have a complete set of colours that I've customised if I want. It might be quite nice to get the children thinking about colour theory here and get them working on different colours and how they work together and look at opposites and things that match. It could be worth giving them restricted tonal palettes and say, let's explore these and do the whole thing in a selection of different shades of green or whatever colour we happen to be working with. But we'll just do a little bit more on this, and then we'll move on to the next task. Okay, and then using a finer brush would make those details a lot easier to do. And we'll just finish it off with the last one. What haven't we had? Well, I think we'll have a pink over here. Okay, and there's other sections that we've left white at the moment that we can colour in different colours. We might want to do some big, bold background colours just to make it stand out from the canvas. But that's a good starting point, just to say, just get the children exploring it and trying the different colours and having a bit of freedom without worrying too much about making this really look like a person. So we'll move on to the next task. Let me just pinch. So we pinch this canvas together, and that just takes us back to our portfolio. And let's go and create our second task. And we'll do the same again, and we're going to start developing in this one a little bit more of a freehand portrait. So I'm going to use the ruler, and we'll put our cross in just as we did before. Let's not do it in yellow. Let's change the color back to gray. I'm going to put one down at the bottom as well as that. And I think we'll have one at the top. And in this one in the bottom, I'll put my vertical line in a moment, but this area at the bottom, just help us get the proportions of our face. I'll put another one around the middle. And this one, if we imagine this is divided into thirds, I'll put it about the third line there. And then put our vertical line in as well. And that gives us a good starting point to start a freehand drawing of a face. This helps us think about the proportions of where the head is, where the eyes are, where the mouth is, and so on. Now, this is the tricky bit now. The hard bit is to kind of roughly put a circle in here as a starting point. And it doesn't have to be too even. And then we can freehand just kind of expand this now to the bottom of the circle and get the rest of the shape of the face in. And we can start just tidying this up a little bit. And we have got that eraser, so we can just correct things. So I'm going to use an eraser here, keep it on a fine tip so I can move the that guideline that we put in here. We'd probably spend some time removing all the guidelines. I'm just going to remove the bottom of that circle one for the moment, just so we've got that out of the way. And I'll take that line out there that we put in there. So there's the basics of my face. I'm going to go back to my pencil there. I think I'm going to go to a black pencil just so it's a bit easier for you to see. Now, we've got the proportions right. We've got that line across the middle, and that will be about where the eyes sit. So let's put two eyes in here, kind of like we did last time. And they look at first appearance a little bit low down. Just use that undo button just to tidy that up in the head. But as you see it build up, it actually kind of, that's the proportions that we expect. On this line here, I'm going to put that in there just to mark the nose, and a bigger one there to mark the mouth. And it's starting to come together. It's starting to look like the right kind of proportions there. So we can flesh this out now. Between these two lines, that's where the ears would sit. So something like that. We can maybe put some eyebrows in here. We could put some couple of eyelashes in for a moment. Let's put a hairline in about here, shall we? Put a neck on like we did before. And we're already getting it starting to look like, let's pad out the mouth. Put some hair in. And it's starting to get that appearance of a face. Now, we could use different brushes to fill this in. I'll stick with that block color one for the moment. So I'll go back to my felt pen. I'll still stick with the large one just because of time, really. And then I'll go back to my colors, and let's go for one of the skin colored ones. And in fact, actually, let's do the hair first. So I'm going to go to yellow, and let's put the hair in. So I'm just going to put a big, thick, solid yellow block in here. And we can be reasonably accurate, and obviously the more time we spend. Now, if you can do this in one go without taking the pen off, we get that nice solid color. I've just lifted the pen off there, but it doesn't really matter because we can have a look at what we do with that later on. And in fact, we can actually use that for part of our technique. So I'm just going to fill in this hair color. And I lifted it off again there. I think actually I am going to put some of the hair down here as well at the face, but that's okay. So we have got that color there. I'm going to deliberately go over it and put a bit of texture in here. And it gives it a bit more style to it. There we go. And in fact, I think I'm going to go for a darker one as well. I'm going to go for a bit more orange with a finer line now and put some of these in as well. And one of the really nice tools that we have that we saw last time is the one down near the bottom, which is our smudge tool. So this is like if we were drawing a pencil drawing, you could use your finger and just kind of smudge it out. So this is great for kind of adding that texture in now. So it just smooths this out, including those pencil lines that we had here. So just smudging it with my virtual finger. We're starting to get a bit more texture. Instead of just having that flat block color, we're starting to get something that might be what we want. And we can spend as much time as we like on this. I think we'll add a little bit more yellow back in over here. Big thick brush over this side. And then smudge that back in as well. So we keep going over it and adding almost layers, as it were. So back to our felt pen. So a nice block solid color. Let's put some skin in now. So again, we'll color it in, and don't worry too much if we're not quite on the lines, because we can sort that out. I can go over most of this. The bit I don't want to go over, I don't particularly want to go over too much over the eyes. Keep those looking fairly white. So we've got that coming on there. We could use one of these different texture here. I could experiment with the watercolor brush, maybe add a slightly darker color in, and I can put some shading in to make this look a bit more like we want. A bit more shape to the nose. I think while we're here, I will go for one of the pink ones, and we'll just put some lips in there. And maybe a blue for the eyes. I'll go back to my smudge tool, and let's just smudge this in. And we're getting something that's looking more like. Now I could just go to my fine line pen and just block around those edges, and this gives it that kind of children's storybook kind of feel. So just drawing around the edges with this pen here. But let me go for a slightly thicker one than that. So I'm just going to draw around. So if you've read any of the David Walliams stories, you've got this kind of style for a lot of, almost like Quentin Blake really, but it just gives it that bit more kind of children's story feel to it. And obviously you spend a little bit more time than this, but it gives us our idea, and you will have removed those guidelines. But we're getting something that's starting to resemble, and we can spend more time putting details in and a bit more blending and a bit more texture on the skin. But we're starting to get there for a freehand portrait. So we can spend as much time as we like. We can keep going with that, but I'm going to just leave that one there. I'll pinch, and we'll add a new canvas this time. And if we take that a bit further and we want something that's starting to look a bit more realistic, this is where it does get a bit scarier and a bit more difficult to kind of give the children that confidence to do it. But we can go back to that old-fashioned idea of bringing tracing paper to the lesson. So I'm going to tap my 3 dots up at the top. And at the end, we have the square with the arrow coming out. We've seen that a lot. So when we're finished, we can share this and it goes to the photo library and we can use it wherever we like. But before it, I have the square with the arrow coming into it, which is the exact opposite. That means we can bring things into the app. So I'm going to tap that and it says, do I want to access my camera, my photo, or my files? I'm going to go to my photo library and I'm going to scroll down to an album I've got here of portrait photos. And there's a few here I could choose. I'm going to go with this one. Okay, this is my boy, and it's just placing it on the canvas there. And I've got a little slider at the bottom here that just lets me set the opacity of that picture. So I'm going to set it somewhere around about there. So I can still see it, but it's kind of faded out a little bit for us. And when I'm happy with that, I'm just going to press the tick and it's there. So I'm going to stick with my fine line. I'm going to go for the finest point here, and we're kind of going to just trace over it. So we'll just spend a few moments just kind of drawing over here. And it does give us that helping hand of putting this portrait together as a starting point. And as with all of these, the more time and the more care you spend with it, obviously, the better the final result. And all the way, before we get any further with that, we do have that little eye icon in the top corner. If I press that, it just takes that picture out. So straight away, we can see how this is starting to look. So let me just do a bit more. Let's put his mouth in. Let's just remove that for a moment. And straight away, we've got that now, where we've got the structure and we've got the form of it coming along. Let's put it back in. Let's just put the rest of his arms in there. And there we go. That's what we get in a kind of like a pen and ink picture of what we've got there. So we've got a few more minutes, so let's start colouring it. Instead of using the block colour this time, I think I'm going to use the watercolour brush. And let's go back to that skin colour up here. And let's put some of this in. And see how we can get this coming together in the next few minutes. And if we can do it all in one go, we do get that nice smooth texture. If we use that smudge tool here though, because I've used that fine line black kind of ink pen, it will smudge the lines as well. So if I want to keep those lines in, we don't really want to use that smudge tool. We want to think about filling in the texture with the different brushes. And the pencil is quite good for that, because if we do turn it sideways, we get that kind of shading technique, and that works really quite well for enhancing things like this. But the watercolor gives a nice feel to it anyway. So there we are. I'm going to go to my pencil tool now. I'm actually going to pick a slightly darker color. Remember, if I use my pencil on the point, I get that kind of pencil outcome. But if I turn it sideways, I can shade. So that's quite nice to start putting in some of this here. Yeah. And it just helps us kind of bring out some of the depth to the picture as well. There we go. So back to my watercolor brush. Let's put his hair in. So I'm going to put a brown in here, and we're just going to fill this in. So we've only got a few minutes left, but let's see how far we get with it. And let's have a grey for his t-shirt. I'm going to go for a slightly bigger brush just for time. Go for that pencil with a darker grey and put some of these shade lines in. Let's get his arms in quickly. Okay, and then I think just to finish, we'll just add in, we've not done his mouth yet, but let's put a little bit of this in at the front here, just make it look so he's not quite kind of just floating there in thin air. Maybe a bit of pink just to fill his mouth in. There we go. I think that'll do us for the moment. And tighten that background, but fairly quickly we get in something that's hopefully, fingers crossed, recognizable as the person it's supposed to be. And just by using that little eye in the corner, we can drop the original back in and just see what else we need to do just to add those bits of shading in and give it a bit more depth to it and keep the feel of the picture coming along. But at least that's fairly quickly some strategies kind of progressing through from abstract drawings through to ending up with something that's a bit more recognizable as a portrait there in not a lot of time, really.
Excellent. Fantastic. So, drum roll.
Fabulous. That's excellent.
I like it. I like it. I've discovered a new artistic strain that I didn't know was there. So thank you for that. Wow. Well, that's amazing. So, I mean, you had a great photo there of Nathan, but of course they could just take a selfie, right? Take a selfie, stick it in your camera roll, import it in, and you've got them drawing themselves to look like a David Walliams book illustration. That sounds like a fun activity for most Key Stage 2 children to me. Well done. Thank you. So, yes, 431, a couple of resources to point you towards that we said we would. First one is Apple Teacher. So I know some of you have been doing this. If you haven't, just go get your camera out, zap those QR codes. The lower one there is your sign up page. You sign up with your Apple ID, your iTunes account, and you work through some CPD modules online in your own time. And eventually you will earn the Apple Teacher badge, which you can print off, stick on your classroom wall, or use in your email signature. Also, I mean, this activity we have done today is straight out of Everyone Can Create. This is a set of books around drawing, photography, video, and music QR code there will take you to an overview on Apple's webpage, and you download books. They're on the Books app on your iPad, your phone, or your Mac. Plenty to go through, step by step, links to the apps that are used. It's brilliant and it's free, so go take a look if you haven't done already. And finally, if you are a teacher that wants to get creative, wants to take your resources to the next level, then we have a MacBook Pro Creative Studio for you. That is the very latest MacBook Pro, just released earlier in May, and also a podcast kit with this fantastic microphone. Hopefully, well, I know the sound quality has been really good because of this. That's in the bundle, and also the green screens so that you can do your Steven Spielberg bit as per earlier videos. The videos are on YouTube. It takes us a few days to post them, but they will be there within the next few days or so. Do share them with colleagues, and we hope you've enjoyed this. Next week, we are back with our first musical session. And are we going to hear a bit of Justin Timberlake?
I think we will do, definitely.
I think we will do. How exciting. Can't stop the feeling, everybody. So we'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Thank you from me. Thank you from David. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.